Welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you join us. We're going to allow time, about a minute, for everybody to filter in here. Thanks so much for taking time on a sunny Friday morning to be with us to hear about making waves, landing on your feet. Great. Super. Well, Brittany and Erica, it looks like we've got some fun friends on this webinar, so I'm going to go ahead and get going and welcome everybody, okay? Ready? All right.
Good.
So welcome again, all of you. We're excited to have all of you here today to our virtual TeamWomen Talks with your guest speakers, Erica Dvorak, Chief of Staff of Checkable Medical, and Brittany McNicholas, who's the social media specialist at Limelight Marketing Systems. So thanks so much for coming. And just before we get going, we always love to share a little bit about the format of our webinar. First and foremost, you know that you can change your view from gallery view to speaker view, and that way, when I'm not sharing my PowerPoint, you'll be able to see the speakers in full frame. So I just encourage you to change your view and know that you can do that. Now, a lot of us are getting more skilled on using Zoom, so just want you to know that that option is available for you to change your view from gallery view to speaker view so that you can see the speaker full frame when they're speaking. Also, you can use the chat box or the Q&A to ask any questions throughout this webinar. We encourage you to ask your questions, and during their talk, we're going to have different breaks, so we'll invite your comments at that time. Also know that this webinar is recorded, and we're going to email you a link and after this session, and so you can view it later and share it with your network as well. And but it will also be on our website too, on teamwomenmn.org/events. So before we get going, because we might have some new members here or new people to our community, we always love to share a little bit about our organization of TeamWomen. So first and foremost, our mission is we inspire women to rise together. We're a membership-based organization. We have about 650 members, and they're from all different industries, from healthcare, financial services, legal, education, nonprofit, military, you name it, we've got them. And they serve in a variety of roles. So we have about 40% of our members are that director level on up to the C-suite. About 30% are managers and collaborators, and 30% are independent contractors and entrepreneurs and consultants. We always have people in transition, and if you are in transition, this is a wonderful community for you, because we love to surround you with opportunities for you to learn from each other and grow from each other and just have some community and fellowship. We've got 3 pillars in our organization to allow you to connect, grow, and be inspired, and ultimately make a difference in one another's lives. One of our key pillars is our mentor program. We offer 2 cohorts a year where we pair mentors and mentees together, and it's a 12-month mentee-driven program. So we invite you to join this program that right now we're accepting applications for, and we're looking for mentors right now. The application deadline is May 6th, and there is no better journey, I would say, than to ride along somebody else's journey and help them by providing that listening ear and also sharing your own experience, strength, and hope with somebody else. We've seen our mentees rise to the C-suite. We've seen them join corporate boards. We've seen them change lanes mid-career and re-enter the workforce. So it's such a rewarding experience. You always get more than you give, and this program allows you that opportunity. So please register online to be a mentor. We'd love to have you on the team. We also have leadership development as one of our key pillars, where we provide leadership development for both professionals and youth. And we have 3 flagship events: our leadership conference, which is August 7th, our Wavemaker Awards, which is planned by our Young Professionals Advisory Board, and that shines a light on the up-and-comers. And then our Empower Rising Stars Gala, which is our fundraiser that helps us support our work within leadership development for youth. And throughout the year, we do about 35 live events. However, COVID-19 has allowed us the quick opportunity to pivot and go virtual. So we're excited to have this new format for you to be able to continue to connect with you. And so some of our upcoming webinars at this month will be Emmy Award-winning Stephanie Getz, and she's a national broadcaster. She's going to be talking on communicating with impact, developing your authentic influence. And then we've converted some of our live events to virtual. So Authors and Apps with Nancy Dahl is a great event too, coming up May 14th. And she'll be talking on her book, Grounded, Leading Life with Intention. And if you like round tables, we're holding our TeamWomen Talks virtually as well. And Jamie Tates is our speaker, and she'll be talking on developing your leadership superpowers in breakout format. For our youth, we provide online leadership coaching sessions for our youth currently 4 times a week for kids 6th through 8th grade and 9th through 12th grade, where our coaches, expert coaches, coach kids on positive mindset, resiliency, confidence, and leadership skills. And it's really helpful now because kids like us are trying to navigate this online e-learning system and not being able to reach out and hug our friends and be together and have that one-on-one fellowship. So we're privileged to be able to offer opportunities for our young kids to create a community online. And it's been so rewarding for us because now we've got an international presence. We've got little Ella from the UK that's joined our Empower Leadership sessions. And another little girl from Austin, Texas had just moved to the city and didn't have any friends. So she was able to join our coaching sessions and make friends. So because of that work, we've been able to launch our new Empower at Home Leadership Certification Program. I mean, now more than ever, kids need to be experienced leaders in resilience, confidence, mental wellness, and leadership. And we're privileged to be able to offer this certification program that we're holding from May 11th to June 4th in Minnesota. Our kids now are not going back to school. So this gives them an opportunity to connect and actually get certified as youth leaders during that time where they're trying to figure out what to do next. So we invite you to check that out. We wouldn't be able to do all this work without our annual sponsors. So we're so grateful for them and also our leadership conference sponsors. And especially without the help of our expert speakers like we have here today. So without further ado, I'm just thrilled to introduce to you Erica Dvorak and Brittany McNicholas. And so I'm going to introduce them to you, and I'm going to read their introduction so I don't miss a thing. So here it goes. Erica Dvorak has over 11 years of healthcare and financial services communications. Erica Dvorak has over 11 years of healthcare and financial services communications, marketing, and business development experience in a variety of organizations such as United Healthcare, the American Cancer Society, Lifetime, Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation, and YWCA. She's the past chair of the TeamWomen Young Professionals Board. Yay, she was one of the founding board members. And she's the past chair of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce YPRO Committee. And she's currently serving on the Corporate and Community Advisory Council for M Health Fairview University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital. Although she has some big name companies and organizations under her belt, the road to success hasn't been a smooth one, starting from day one. Throughout the years of discouragement, she's found the will and drive to bounce back and realize that even though the waves aren't easy, they are definitely worth it. Brittany McNicholas moved to New York City at 17 to study at Parsons School of Design. The first year of art school cultivated her mind as a designer, exposing her to a plethora of design fields. Ultimately, choosing to study fashion design, she knew graphic design would always be a constant in her life. In 2008, Brittany graduated during the height of the recession, and although her career didn't start when she planned, or the way she planned, all of the connections and steps led to her dream job. After spending 11 years in the fashion industry, Brittany shifted careers, and through all the waves, design has been a constant in Brittany's life. She is TeamWomen Empower's social specialist through Limelight Marketing Systems. We're thrilled and honored to have both of you here with us to share your experience of what it must be like to graduate in this pandemic. I mean, you both have lived through it 10 years earlier, or more. And so you know what's on the heart, minds, and soul of these kids that are coming out into this world. And so thank you for helping them just sharing your experience of what it was like to ride these waves. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with my first question for both of you. And just have you expand a little bit. What was the atmosphere like when you graduated in the recession back in 2008?
Yeah, so for me, I graduated in 2008. The economic downturn had already been confirmed. The Stimulus Act was in action. I was actually living on Wall Street and was $180,000 in student loan debt from college. I was eager to start my career as a fashion designer. You kind of go through school thinking that your career is going to start after that, and the jobs were scarce and the pool was very crowded.
Yeah, and for me, so I graduated in 2009. I thought to myself that I had done all the right things. I had gotten the good grades. I had joined and led organizations within my community at school. And I had also had some really great interviews. But on graduation day, I found myself jobless, really with no sense of direction. And to give you an idea of graduation day for me, so the MC didn't have quite a pulse on what we were going through. So the MC asked, out of the 500 soon-to-be graduates who had a job, and 5 individuals raised their hand. So 5 people out of 500 were able to find jobs before graduation. So 1% of that graduating class, or in that time frame. So it was a little dismal for us, to say the least, but good opportunity was ahead.
Yeah, unbelievable. So how did you shift your mindset at that time? First of all, Rachel Brewster is saying, wow, to that experience. So
for me, I really had to be open-minded, flexible, and willing to hustle. This was my dream. This is what I had put so much work into during college, that I wasn't giving up easily. I had to be open-minded about shifting my field a bit. So I trained in women's apparel and had to look at jobs in different parts of the industry. And I had to be flexible about what my career was going to look like in the short term. I still had my long-term goals, but I knew that my short-term actions were going to be shifting. And I was fortunate enough through networking to land an internship at Express on the accessories design team for $12 an hour. Erica's journey started similar with an internship at $8 an hour. Not quite the journey you expect after getting a 4-year degree from a college. And I did that 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, and I worked in retail 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then on the weekend. So my willingness to hustle just had to jump in, and I wasn't giving up. I was going to make it work.
Yeah, and like Brittany said, for me, so I graduated from college and couldn't find a full-time job, so I landed my 4th internship at $8 an hour with the Minneapolis Heart Institute Foundation, and I loved it, and it was great. And I really had hoped that it would turn into a full-time position, but they just didn't have the budget when the budget was passed, and so I found myself looking for a new opportunity and landed in a few jobs that I didn't quite expect to be taking out of college. And then I finally was able to land my big girl job as so to speak, like a year and a half or 2 years after. And with that, I think the mindset, the shift was just finding the opportunity within that new big girl job. So even though it was the big girl job, it wasn't at a PR agency. It wasn't even really in a marketing role, which is what I had hoped and dreamed for. It was an assistant at an insurance company, which is a great role, just not something that I had envisioned. So I had negotiated with my boss to add some marketing tasks. And then also switch my title to have kind of a little bit of a marketing spin to it, knowing that I wasn't going to be in that role for the long haul, that would help at least look good on my resume, and I would have things to speak to jobs that I would want in the future. And doing that actually landed me my first job that I really, really loved and enjoyed at the American Cancer Society.
Oh, smart. Good thinking. Way to be proactive in terms of what you could do, to keep moving ahead with where you were at. What other types of waves have you gone through in your career? And audience, please feel free to share any opportunity or, any waves that you're experiencing too. So
yeah,
love to encourage any comments that you have.
For sure. So, I've gone through quite a bit of waves in my career, a lot of ups and downs. So I had said I joined, or I was able to get hired at the American Cancer Society, and I loved that role. I was the only individual in the state of Minnesota that was running that program. So I had a lot of say, a lot of, I'd say, clout within the American Cancer Society community. And I was in that role for 6 months. I had, they say blood, sweat, and tears. I literally had blood on the job. I was schlepping around event equipment, and I was sweating outside in 90-degree weather and crying because it was so hard and demanding some days, but I absolutely loved the job. But 6 months into the job, I had a call placed on my calendar, and I was on the phone with my peers. And as I'm on the phone with my peers, I'm being told that they cut the program nationwide and the job no longer existed. As I'm being told that, the president of ACS in Minnesota, was placing a box in my cube and mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." And so I'm sitting there just bawling in my cube. My life was attached. My hopes and dreams were attached to this job. And as I'm looking at the box and I'm looking at my desk and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have so much to grab. I have so much to pack. The realization set in that that's not my life anymore. And that none of the stuff on my desk that I tied my identity to was me anymore. It just would grab my photos and that's it. All the stuff that I thought was a part of me was no longer a part of me. And that was just a tough realization, but one that I'm super glad that I had, because it made me realize that my job is not my identity. It's just a part of me, but my job is not my identity. And through that, so after after American Cancer Society, I had a few different roles. Some were amazing, some weren't so great. And I landed in one that I thought was just super awesome. I was at a Salesforce consulting company. It was much like what you think of like Google or Facebook. We had themed Thursdays and free lunches on Thursdays and free snacks all the time. Just super fun, super cool. And again, a year after being in that role, I was laid off. And so I'm once again in that point of, okay, what do I do? Where do I go from here? And I had been involved in TeamWomen and the St. Paul Chamber and all these organizations and individuals that told me, oh my gosh, Erica, you are going to find a job in like 2 seconds. It's not going to take you long. The manager role, like everybody's hiring for those right now. It's not going to take you long at all. It took me 4 months, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when it's your full-time job, looking for a job, like full-time, 8+ hours a day, going on interviews, applying to jobs, doing it all, that's a lot. 4 months is a long time. And so it just was the realization of like, all of that may not help. It's just luck will come. Yeah, it was just a really interesting thing that like after the 4 months, I didn't find a job, but I built resilience through that.
Absolutely. Because that's constantly, you have to get up every day and repeat the same action and look,
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
find your direction and find a win in every day to keep your energy up. It's so much work just to look for that next opportunity, you
Yeah,
know?
it's that positive attitude that you need to
Yeah.
have.
Definitely. In fact, Michaela's saying this is such a timely discussion. She's saying, yeah, as a fellow millennial, she can totally relate to all of this. It's such
Yeah.
a similar journey that you both have shared, but she's in a totally different industry. So yeah, it's all relatable. In fact, I was thinking as you both were talking about your first jobs, even my first job with my BFA in, I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts in radio, TV, film. And my first job out of college was for $3.35 an hour.
Wow.
As an administrator. Yeah. Well, I joined a startup production company, you know, so like I have had this thing for startups, but yet TV, but $3.35 an hour. That was minimum wage then. Does that
Wow.
date me? Just wondering.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, so for me,
Brittany, yeah,
so for me, my experience was similar. I got my internship, and looking back on it, my internship really was probably a better experience than I would have had at other full-time jobs I could have gotten. I was a part of a small team. It was the creative director, the designer, and myself designing all of the accessory categories for Express. And so I was exposed very quickly and held up a significant amount of responsibility very quickly. And it became my dream job. I valued Express. I love the company. I enjoyed the work I was doing. So I too found myself crushed when 6 months later, because of the economy, they decided to lay off all of the interns who were technically on the teams as a full-time assistant and switch to a credit-based university program in the summer months only. So I was back to applying full-time, 8-10 hours a day, not getting anywhere. I interviewed at temp agencies. I was at that point where I needed something. And there still was a part of me that didn't want to give up on fashion. And I ended up taking the first job that was offered to me in the fashion industry. It was in children's accessories, which without that internship in accessories may not have happened. So kind of each one of my not ideal steps led to these compilation of things that did lead to my dream job. And so in that role, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't a great environment, but I got to experience the vendor side of fashion, whereas Express was on the customer side. I also got to experience working with big box retailers, all of these things that are very prominent in the fashion industry. So it really expanded my focus. And I also had amazing coworkers that became good friends. So again, as Erica talked about, like having a positive mindset and finding the positives, even when something isn't overly ideal, there's still something you can pull out of it. And then a year and a half later, after working at that company, my boss from Express actually reached out to me on Facebook, of all things, asking if I would come back to Express. And because it was on Facebook, I didn't really believe it at first, but it was true. I went in and met with her, and the designer was leaving, so it would just be us as a team of 2. And I spent the next 3 days, probably 20 hours a day, working on my project for the interview with the SVP that next week. And I knew I wanted it really badly, and they were impressed with the work I did, but honestly, it was the work that I put in during my internship, which wasn't the ideal step in my career that got me back to my dream job.
That's just, I love the degrees of openness both of you have shared through your, career journey and riding those waves and just staying open and then seeing the positives and seeing them for what they are, tools in your toolbox, because you just don't know, what is in store for you. And we've got some great comments. I'm going to just interrupt our chat for a minute. Michaela says that when she was job searching, her career counselor had crazy states about the number of jobs in Minnesota that go, or statistics, I think that must be, statistics that about the number of jobs in Minnesota that go unposted and get filled by people they personally know. She was speaking about the fact of networking, which both of you did, how important that is. And Chelsea I think that's Chelsea. She says that with BS in dental hygiene in 2009, never finding a job as a hygienist, loan bloomed. I took a job as a nanny to pay the bills.
Yeah.
The nanny gig led me 3 years later in current company where she's now a managing director of the company. Yay for pivot and not another source of opportunity. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Leveraging that opportunity, finding that silver lining. There's always something that you can take from it. It's with any experience in life. You can take something good out of that bad and switch it for a better and successful future.
Absolutely. And you both have had recently big pivotal moments in your life. Can you share what you learned from them?
Yes, so for me, I had been at Express for about 6 years when I got various calls during the year. The first was that my first nephew was born 11 weeks early, and then my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away 20 days after being diagnosed, and his funeral was actually on the original due date of my nephew. So talk about full circle. We could also mix in how the night before my dad's funeral, we had to call 911 because my nephew stopped breathing. So it was just a very pivotal, life-changing year for me. And within a year of that, my entire mindset had shifted, and I opened up my job search, staying in fashion, but to the whole US, London and Spain. And even with talking to really big, awesome companies on the West Coast, which living at the beach is a dream of mine, it just, something about it didn't feel right. It didn't align with my goals anymore. And I moved to Minneapolis where I didn't know anyone, no friends, no family. And I moved here for a job in fashion, but my intent really was to have the time to kind of have a simpler, slow-paced life, to really get out of the fog. And I knew fashion wasn't my dream anymore, but I had no idea what was. And I just needed that time for it to come to light. I'm a big believer in your intuition. And if you just keep moving forward, that intuition will come through. And so you just have to keep moving and finding those positive, and it's going to happen. Everything is not permanent forever. And my dreams completely changed. I completely identified myself with being a fashion designer. And I learned that like Erica, my job isn't my identity. My career isn't my identity. And in switching careers, which I've now done, I've transitioned out of fashion into marketing full-time and graphic design. I learned how transferable those skills were. Everything I've worked hard at up to this point is all still just as valuable as if I did stay in fashion. And I think that that's a really important takeaway, because it's easy for us to focus on, well, I did this, but you can pull out aspects of the tasks you did and the projects you did and the accomplishments you made into feasible and relatable content for other career fields as well.
So true. Absolutely. What about you, Erica?
Yeah, so mine, I had a big change recently. So I have now a 20-month-old son, Benton, who I just love and adore. He's my little sweet boy, now a toddler, which makes me sad. It's not my baby boy, even though I'm always going to call him that. So I recently obviously had him, and at the time when I had him, I was working, so I should back it up. When I last was speaking, I was talking about getting laid off. And so during that 4 months, I didn't find a job, but I landed at United Healthcare, which was super exciting because that's a job that, is a pivotal job that there's a lot of individuals out there who just would love to have a career with a company as big as United Healthcare. So I was just so blessed to have that opportunity and to do that. And so I loved my team. I loved my boss. I loved what I was doing. I was able to have a seat at the table, and the work that I was doing at United Healthcare was visible to the CEO because it was a big revenue maker for them. So when I had him, I was in that role, and in that role, I required me to work about 60 hours a week, which is semi-okay. I would say okay in quotation mark. That's still a lot when you don't have a child, but it was okay. It was doable prior to having him. And then after having him, the 60 hours a week just became too much. The demands of being a mom, just the demands of the job. It was a high stress job. really became too much. And I should mention too that my son's birth was a high-risk pregnancy, or my pregnancy was a high-risk pregnancy. So there was some anxiety throughout the pregnancy, and then his birth was pretty traumatic. And so because of that, I had some physical health issues and then also some mental health issues after. So you pair the health issues along with the 60-hour work weeks and the stress of being a new mom and not knowing what the heck you're doing. It was a lot to handle. I remember one day sitting at work in my chair, and I just felt like my insides were black. Like I honestly felt like I didn't have cancer, but I felt like there was just something black just taking over my body. I was depressed. I was sad. I just, relationships weren't good. And so I had to have that tough conversation with my husband. And we made the decision that leaving United Healthcare was the best option for me, which was really hard for me because that's the vision that I had in my head of like what a good career was, what success looked like. And I was I was bummed because I felt like I was failing. There were so many other moms that were able to do the 60 hours a week and still be fine and have a smile on their face. But for me, it was tough. And so I had to come to that realization that, one, I wasn't failing. And two, I needed to do what was best for my family. And so I made that leap without a safety net. And I was so afraid of what people would think of me. And it was funny when I finally made the announcement that individuals were calling me courageous. They were telling me that they're like so excited for me and the next step. And some even said that they wished they would be able to make that decision as well. So it was just really, it was funny to think that I was so afraid to tell individuals and make this leap because of what people thought of me. And it ended up being something that they were praising me for. So I really think what I learned is that to not be afraid of what you think is right for you, because no matter what, it's your life, and you're the one who has to live it. And what anybody else thinks doesn't really matter at that point, because it's you, and it's about you and your family. And it may surprise you that they're going to praise you for it, and they're not going to judge you for it. And even if they do, then it doesn't matter, because it's your gut feeling. Like Brittany said, it's that intuition of what's right for you, and it'll work out. Everything will be okay. And that's the way it was for me.
This is so awesome. I just feel like you are giving people permission, right? By your own experience, permission to go with their gut, go with their intuition, to trust themselves, and to be courageous, and to stop comparing themselves to others, because that is that trap that you can get in. That's what social media can do to us. That it can just be a natural human, behavior, right? Mm-hmm. But I really love the millennial generation, because I think that you do it. You all keep seeing consistently that you all come to the realization that you want to do what's right for you and yourself. It's different than the baby boomer that lived the career for 40 years and we were at the corporate and, pen, all that stuff. You're just taking the reins of your life and you're creating the life that you want to live. And so I applaud you both for doing that. In fact, it looks like some fun comments here. Ryan, how it says, way to go, Erica. Been there, done that twice. You did the right thing, sweetheart. Lead us, millennials. And I agree. You are leading us, both of you. And so there's even the great FIRE movement too. Do you guys know I love the FIRE movement, started by a millennial too. Yeah, financial independence, retire early. Again, it's just having that self-awareness to create the life and the career that you want, that works for you.
Yep. We prioritize happiness much more than previous generations were honestly able to. But I think that that's what makes our generation strong.
I do too. But it's very courageous. I just think there's a lot of courage in both of you. So you've shared a lot about, how you pivoted and what challenges, how do you persevere during all this? I mean, we can say, okay, yeah, you can be open, you can be courageous, but at the end of the day, you're still getting, right? You're living your new life or your best life. So what, what are some tips that you can give us that where you share how you persevered during all of this?
For me, it was to take a line from Nemo, just keep swimming, or surfing if you want to say riding the waves. Honestly, just, those first few waves felt like they were crashing on me and I couldn't get up. And as time has gone on, I think with experience and with the years under your belt, you realize that the waves aren't stopping, but every wave doesn't have to feel like a tsunami. And I think that they're more expected as well. So getting through each of those waves in the beginning just gave me the confidence and the resilience that I could do it again. I can do this again. And it also gave me tools to apply to future waves. And then one thing for me, which you just touched on, was we have a tendency to compare. And for me, when my dad passed away, a lot of my friends would naturally complain about their jobs, their boyfriends, their husbands, whatever it may be, and then stop themselves and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I know this is nothing compared to your dad passing away. And one thing I learned from that is that there's no scale of sucking. Like whether someone is furloughed right now with insurance, or whether someone lost their job completely, or whether someone is in a job that they absolutely hate and are miserable, like there is no scale of sucking. Everyone's going to have their hard waves at different points in their life. And it's not comparable. Some people have a harder time with certain emotions or certain actions than others. And that was a really big eye-opener for me, because I think that through the waves, we put more pressure on ourselves with that tendency to compare.
So true. Thank you. I love that. That's a great line. There is no scale of success.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Sure. And like Brittany said, for me, it was really, like Brittany said, endurance. So building that endurance, the waves don't seem so tough as they were back then. Getting laid off that second time, that stunk, but I had done it before, so I had some sort of sense of confidence in it too. Like I had hope, and I knew that there was opportunity that would come from it. So it was a little exciting too. After I got through that first day, it ended up, becoming a little more exciting. Not to say that it wasn't tough throughout those 4 months, to get up every day and have a positive attitude, but it really is about that attitude. For me also, though, my faith got me through it a lot. I think you need to have a sense of hope. And so I would just dive into my faith and cling to that and hold on to that. And it really just helped me get through those day-to-days, especially the time with my son at United Healthcare when I was just dealing with those health issues. I mean, those were really, really tough times. And without my faith, it wouldn't have been easy to go through.
Yeah. So we thank you so much for sharing those great tips. And I want to say that first, Chelsea says, there is no scale of sucking. Quote of the day, preach. Yeah.
Yes, that was good.
Share it with others. Share
it. Mary says, you're both so humble and teachable. So
Thank you.
True. Now, we also received some great questions in advance of your webinar, and I just want to share one of those questions. Let's see. Actually,
I think, is it the in my experience one?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can read that one. So the one that was presented was, in my experience, I've made it far into the interview process, but the employer seems to pick the other candidate. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Do you have any tips where you feel discouraged? And I can speak directly to this. So I will say, one, you're not doing anything wrong. I too have made it far in the interview process. So when I was unemployed for the 4 months, I had applied to over 200 jobs, been on, I think, over 40 in-person interviews. And on a handful of them, I was one of the top 2 candidates. And it stinks because you fall in love with the position, you fall in love with the idea of that being your life. You also fall in love with the people that you're going to work with. If you're second, if you are one of the last 2, then you've been on multiple interviews nowadays. I mean, you've been on like 3 or 4, you've gotten to know these people, you've started to learn about their families and what they like to do. And so it can be really heartbreaking for that to just not be a reality for you anymore. The one thing I realized though is that the jobs that I didn't get, I look back now, and hindsight is the best. I look back now and I'm so glad I didn't get those roles. Like where I am today, I'm like, that just wouldn't fit the lifestyle that I want or the future that I want for myself. So I think there's a beauty in that. You can't see that right now with where you're at, but just know that one day there is that hope that you are going to most likely look back and think, okay, I'm really glad that I didn't get that job.
One of my favorite quotes is trust the timing of your life. And because in the interim, it is so hard to see it. And it comes to light later. Hindsight is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the part about feeling discouraged, like it's okay to feel discouraged. That's a normal, healthy feeling. Like you need to recognize the feelings that you have. But then for me, you just, you get discouraged for the day and then you pick yourself back up the next day. And some things that have really helped me one is community. So find, what I like to say is like your positive posse. So find your positive group of people. And if you don't have one within your community, reach out and try to look for people. If you don't have one, reach out to Katie, reach out to me, reach out to Brittany. Like we will support you and we will be that positivity for you. Also listening to upbeat music, that helps me a ton. And podcasts are huge. I would say, so I'm at a startup company now, like Katie had said, at Checkable Medical. And I will tell you, listen to podcasts that are about entrepreneurs and the businesses they've started and the things they've gone through. Because if you want some positivity and you want to learn from people who have failed, because entrepreneurs, most of them have failed a lot before they became successful, and they've had to ride these waves and go through them. Listen to those podcasts, and it'll give you a sense of hope of knowing that, okay, someone else has gone through something maybe even worse than I have, and look at the success of where they are today.
Those are just great tips. I want to get to our paper activity before we have to sign off. So Brittany, it looks like you're up to introduce it.
Yep. So there's a few tools that were given to Erica during her career of waves. And we thought that these are really great to share. So the first is a paper activity. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take a sheet of paper and put a line down the middle. And so this is great for people who are in transition or just not fully loving their current position. So on one side, put the things that you want to do, and then on the other side, the things you don't want to do. So for example, I want to communicate with people. I don't want to file stuff all day. Simple stuff. But looking back at this list and taking time to do this can really help formulate in your brain and start to connect things that are on those lists. The other thing you can do on that is skills that you already have and skills that you don't have. And this is great too, because we often forget about the skills that we have because we've only been utilizing them in one certain way. And again, how I was speaking about, your skills are so transferable. And again, as you make this list, it's going to come to your mind, things you can do, how you can apply those skills differently. And then another activity we suggest is 6 people that you could connect with in the next 6 weeks, even just to ask them about their story. Like Erica said with podcasts, there is power in stories and power in hearing people's experience. So are there 6 people you can connect with to hear their story, to have them review your resume, to pick their brain about the waves they've gone through? Hearing that can just help you so much in terms of confidence and ideas of what to do next in your story.
That's awesome. And I've actually copied and pasted the activity and put it in the chat. And just so you attendees know, there's 3 dots in the chat so you can save the chat, but we can also include this chat, the activity, in our email reminder as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
And Bob McNamara says, great info. Yeah, so
Yay,
he's on there.
thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the second part of the activity, so these, I'm going to go through 3 questions. These 3 questions were really pivotal in making the decision to leave United Healthcare for me. And so really think about them. We'll go through them quickly, but write them down, or like Katie said, she'll put them in the chat. Make sure you save them and really think about them, because it shines a huge light on where you will want to take yourself in your career and just your life in the future. So number 1 is, in 5 to 10 years time, if you have made no changes at all to your current life, and mind you, this is not involving COVID, this is pre-COVID, or just take all of the things that we can't do right now out of your head and just focus on your career, because I know that's tough. But if in the perfect world, so think of this, in 5 to 10 years time, if you had made no changes in your current life, do you think that that your current life would have taken you in a direction that will make you happy and fulfilled? 2, if you could wake up in 5 different places for the next 5 days, so somewhere new every single morning, you would just wake up, open your eyes, and you'd be somewhere new, where would those 5 places be? And then number 3, this one was a big one for me. This opened my eyes of knowing, like, okay, this is really where I want to take my life. Like, I want to help people. I want to do these certain things. So really take time to think about this question. So if you had $50 billion, how would you live your life on a day-to-day basis? So most people think about, I'd love to travel, or I would buy my island, or I would do whatever. So that's fine, do those things. But after you do those things, most of us feel like we need to have a purpose or a passion in life. So what would you do with that money on a day-to-day basis that would help fuel you and fuel those things? And that should help you shed a light on really where you should be taking yourself in your future.
These are such great activities, and such great food for thought for people to do. And I, like you said, I did put them in the chat, but we'll also include them in the email reminder. And we've come to the end of our time here, but you have given us inspiration, hope by sharing your experience. That's how we have fellowship and community, and we can all on tips on persevering through this time. We are so grateful. And if anybody does have answers to some of the questions that we've posted in the chat, and then, feel free to stick around now for any that can stay past 10:45. We'll be here. If you'd like to share your answers for any of the activities, we're happy to do that. Thanks for posting that, Rachel. But if you have any wrap-up conclusion remarks too, Erica.
Sure. Yeah. So, and I would say I those questions I did not create myself. So I'm just going to make sure I let you know where I got them. I got them from a book called The Avant-Garde Life. I have to say that I didn't read the book, just those questions. So I'm not sure how good the book is, but they are not my own questions. They're one that I found. But I think to wrap it all up, it really is that one, a positive attitude is key. I know we hear that constantly, but it really is. Like, your perspective is everything. Like, how you view things is everything. If you think you're going to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. If you have a positive attitude and you think, hey, this stinks, but I know there's hope, there's opportunity, you're going to have hope and you're going to have opportunity. So really just try to keep that positive attitude. And again, find those people, find those things to keep the positivity up and moving. It's okay to have those tough days, and it's okay to have those sad and mad and all those feelings, but then pick yourself back up and start over again. Because
right now is great practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now is great practice. A bad moment in your day doesn't have to make it a bad day. And that can flow into life and into all of your waves that come after as well.
Perfect. Well, that is just a perfect way to end our time together. Again, we can't thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
thank you.
We're so grateful. I'll read 2 more comments that are coming in though, but Rachel's answers are, for number 1, no. Question number,
I love it.
Yikes, don't like her own answer on this one. She's working out, telling stories, going to networking events, doing all the things right. Actually, she's doing a webinar with us next week. So fine. Next month, Friday.
Yeah, if you help presentations, Rachel, tune in on Friday, next Friday.
Awesome. Whoop, whoop. And then Kathy says, another thing that helps is to think of the negative feedback that you've received and how that propels you forward. Excellent. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And then Chelsea says, thank you so much for sharing your stories. For question number 1, she knows that her current life and career will not keep her fulfilled for 5 to 10 years. So she's looking forward to connecting with y'all, expanding her network. All right.
Yes. We're excited too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come to TeamWomen events. We'd love to have you at more virtual and live. So thank you all for what you've done, Erica and Brittany, to help our organization grow to the place that it is today. We wouldn't be here without you, and we value and appreciate and respect each of you immensely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
So
you.
happy
So honored to be a
talk
part of it.
friends.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye.